Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to be looking at function composition. Ignore those parts that say whiteboards. That's what we're doing physically in class, but that's going to be practice for you guys at home. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's look at our essential questions. How do you compose functions? And then of course, how do you evaluate composite functions? And we're going to actually be doing evaluating composite functions from a table, from a graph, and then also from the functions themselves. But first, let's learn, how do you compose functions? What does that mean? Well, some vocabulary for you to get started is composite function, a combination of two functions such that the output from the first function becomes the input for the second function. So something for output, don't forget, this is your y value. And then your input, that is going to be your x value. Do not forget those. So as I'm looking here, f of g of x. This is how I say this. This isn't times, this is of. Down here I have g of f of x. And so what that means for f of g of x, you can say fog, some people say fog, but f of g of x, all that says right here is f of, the parentheses right there, of g of x. So we have g of x, that is a y value, we get a y value from that, and now that becomes the x value of our function f. So let's take a look at it. Would you rather give a pig a piggyback ride or a bear hug? Would you rather have a 20% discount and then $10 off, or the $10 off and then a 20% discount? And then if you start with $5, would you rather add $1 and then multiply by 3, or multiply by 3 then add $1? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. These questions are, how you would want to approach composition of functions. These are functions, a series of steps, instructions to follow. Except for really this first one. This one's just, kind of fun. So let's look at it. We're going to be applying our definitions. Here's our function f of x equals 3x right there. And g of x is 2x plus 3. So going back to my definition for f of g of x, for fog of x, this is going to be f of g of x. Well, what does that mean to us? Well, okay, so we can go forward, and I'm going to write f of, g of x now I'm going to replace with the 2x plus 3 that we have. So 2x plus 3. And then wherever I have an f or an x in my function f, so right there, I'm going to put in the function. I'm going to start rewriting the function f3 is what it starts with. And then when I run into the x, I'm going to drop in my function 2x plus 3. Just like that. Man, these colors are difficult. And then you just want to simplify. So let me switch it to green since we've done our substitutions. So from here I'll distribute. So 3 times 2x is 6x, and then 2x times 3 is, sorry, not 2x times 3, 3 times 3 is 9. And now we can go backwards, the composition backwards. So this time, starting with g, we're going to write g, and inside of g goes f. That will be our second function now. So let's look at what this turns out to say. So we're going to write g, but instead of f of x, we'll make our substitution, which is 3x. So now it says g of 3x. And we'll write everything that is g except for the x part, which we'll replace with 3x. So 2, and then parentheses, because that's where the x is right there, and then plus 3. And then in place in those parentheses, we'll write 3x. Now we're good to simplify. So 2 times 3x is 6x plus 3. Nothing else to simplify. All of our terms are combined. So that's how you can go ahead and compose two functions. So right here, go ahead and give these a try. And I'll flash the answers up in just a second. All right. Here are your answers. That's all the work worked out step by step. Make sure you follow the colors. The green is the part that happens after we've made our substitutions. On to our next one. Again, here's two more examples for you to take a look at. Go ahead and give these a try. All right. I hope you got these. Don't worry about the squares. They're not that bad. Just remember your exponent rules, like such as right here when you square the -2, so that's -2 times -2, which is why we're getting a +4. And then you also have to square the x. All right, for this next problem, we're going to find fog of 2. So we're actually going to evaluate this for a number. So when I do this, instead of putting in x, I'm going to put in the value 2. So I'm going to still write, we still have our f and we still have our g, but I'm going to write f. But instead of writing g of x, I'm going to write g of 2. So now when I write this, I'm actually going to figure out what g of 2 is. Well, f of, and then g of 2 should look like, well, wherever the x is, I'm going to substitute the 2 in for it. So -2 squared, just like that. Now we're ready to keep going. So 2 squared, that's 4, times a negative, that's -4. And I have f of -4. Well, all we have to do to figure out f of -4 is take the -4 and substitute it in for that x into our function f. So I had 3 times -4 minus 4. So I get -12 minus 4, which is -16. Go ahead and pause your video here and try GOF of 4 and see if you can get the same answer that I get. All right, there it is, all worked out. Did you get -64? Did you substitute f of 4 and then evaluate the f of 4 right here? Because if you did, that's how we're getting the 8. All right, onwards and upwards. So right here, we're going to look at a table perspective. So very first thing I notice is I have f of x. We were just given a function. That was f of x. And then over here, I have g of x. We're doing the exact same thing, but notice how we have a table of values. So we're doing the same exact setup. Notice here we're solving for 8, -2, 2, and 0. And then our function compositions themselves are starting to look a little bit different, because you can change your functions however you need to create whichever behavior that you want. We do that all the time in the world. We always change up our instructions, but we take those steps and we combine them in different ways. So when we do f of g of 8 right here, I'm going to do f of g of 8. Is that any different than what we've done before? No. So with f of g of 8, I'm going to figure out what g of 8 is. So that's going to be, so this is my function g. So g of 8, that's -3. So I'm going to get f of -3. Well, what does that give us? Well, f of -3, I'll look right here. F of -3 is equal to -7. So if you have a table of values, you can figure out everything as well. G of f of -2, let's go through that one. G of f of negative 2. So let's see how that turns out. So g of, well, f of negative 2, that's going to get me negative 4. And when I evaluate g of negative 4, that's going to get me 9. So it goes a little bit quicker when we're not evaluating the functions themselves. So let's look at this one now where it says find fog of 2. So that means for us f of g of 2. And then after that, we'll keep going. We'll figure out what g of 2 is. So g of 2 is 3. So we'll substitute that in next. Well, f of 3, that's going to be right here. That's going to get us 11. And finally, f of 0. So now what I'm saying is I'm taking the function and I'm substituting it into itself. So f of 0, just like that. We're going to evaluate the same way. What is the value of the second function? Well, f of 0, that's 2. So now this becomes f of 2, because f of 0 is equal to that 2 right there. Well, we can figure out what f of 2 is. That's going to get me 8. So the same exact process, I'm showing you guys that you can flip everything around. You can find a composition of 3 functions or more. We can make anything we want. Go ahead and try this problem out. It is another table problem. We're finding 4 more functions. They're all of 1, which makes things easy. And go ahead and check your answers in a second. Okay, here are all the answers with the substitutions, nicely color-coded, except for I should have colored the last one red. Let's see, I don't think it'll let me color it red. Well, let me just rewrite it real quick. Okay, there we go. All red. If you don't get the same answers, don't give up. Look at where the substitutions are. Maybe you just made a silly mistake when you were looking at the table. Maybe you looked at 0 and you came over here and you wrote -7. So, if you're making a little mistake like that, you're not in big trouble. If you still have no idea what's going on, you should probably pause the video right now and come and see me. We're going to be doing the exact same thing. This time we're going to be looking at it from a graph. If you can't see it, this right here is g of x. I hope you can see that. And we're doing our same process. This time we're doing it from coordinates in a graph. So let's take a look at g of f of 3. So g is blue. So blue of f of 3. So f of 3 well, f of 3, in order to figure out f of 3, you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So we're right there. That's my coordinate. What is that y value? That y value is 2. So now I have g of 2. So I go back to my coordinate plane. I'm following g this time. So 1, 2, and what is the y value? That y value is -2. So our result is -2. Now let's look at f of h of -3. So f of h of -3. Okay, so f of h of -3. We go to h, we're looking at our h function. -3, so 1, 2, 3. What is my y value? Well, my y value is -2. So now I have f of -2. So I go back to my f function, and I go 2 to the left, so 1, 2. What is that y value? It's right here, so the y value is 1, 2, 3. Now let's find hog of 4. So let's see, h is green, so h of g of 4. Well, let's see what that gets us. Well, g of 4, that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. What is that y value? 1, 2, 3 down. So now I'm looking at h of negative 3, because that was 3 down. So h of negative 3, so 1, 2, 3, that's right here. We already know that that value is negative 2. Let's look at f of 5. Again, we're substituting that value into itself. So f of 5. Well, f of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That y value is positive 4. So now I have to find f of 4. Same function, but this time 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That y value is 3. So that's how we can do the exact same thing from a graph. All right, 3 more questions using these 3 functions. Go ahead and give it a try. All right, so I hope you did well on those problems. We only have just a little bit left. What I have here for you guys are just some random practice problems. Give it your best shot and check your answers. Okay, go ahead and check these answers out. I hope you did pretty good. Again, if you have any trouble on these, make sure you come and see me during my tutoring time. And now I got 4 more problems. These are a little bit more challenging. You have to remember like some of the square roots, and then you have some fractions in here, but not beyond any Algebra 2 student. You all can do it. Go ahead, pause the video here, and give it your best shot. All right, there's everything worked out. I hope you had a good time during this lesson. I know it's a lot. Composition can be pretty new for some people. But again, if you need any help, my name is Mr. Hernandez, and I'm always here to help.